I would argue that these sclerotic, irrational tariffs have thrust a lot of nations who traditionally weren't friends with China, have thrust them into their hands. The most chilling image of 2025 was Modi, Xi, and Putin all acting like they're at a fraternity party, and it didn't need to happen. Japan, South Korea, and China are having trade talks for the first time in a long while. The Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, is on a tour through Asia. 24% of Chinese exports used to come into China. Now it's 17. They're diversifying away from us. And effectively, these tariffs were supposed to inspire a flurry of deal making, and they are. Unfortunately, the deal making is outside of the U.S. People are reconfiguring their supply chains to avoid the U.S., who they feel they can't count on. They don't understand the tariff policy. It seems to be based on the blood sugar level of a president and his chief economist, who, quite frankly, is citing uh, people who don't exist in economic papers. And we have seen throughout economic history, tariffs are an elegant way to reduce prosperity. As it relates to Canada, 70% of their exports come to the U.S. It's like that Animal House line. You effed up, you trusted us. They have based a big portion of their economy on good relationships with the U.S. It's the largest undefended border in the world. And yet we have decided to declare economic warfare on them. And it's not only, there's nothing, the only thing worse than fighting with your allies is fighting without them. They've been amazing allies for us. And to think that we're just, quite frankly, messing with them this much is just not very smart. In addition, if you just look at free trade, I agree with Kevin, we should have free trade with Canada. We Americans asymmetrically benefit. They import into the US low margin products, lumber, petroleum, oil, operating margins of 10 to 20%, companies that trade at a P multiple of 20. We import into Canada high margin products, iPhones, cars, electronics that have 30 to 40 points of operating margin with companies that trade at multiples of a P multiple of 30. In other words, for every dollar we make from products we ship into Canada, we get about $3 in shareholder value. They get about one. So if there's any asymmetry in free trade that accretes to one partner, it asymmetrically benefits the U.S. So not only is this waving our middle finger and an amazing ally, it's just economically stupid what we have done. So in addition, if you want to talk about a great ally, I love the question posed to his friend, Warren Buffett, a Holocaust survivor. He said, how do you know if someone's your friend? And she responded, she asked herself, would they hide me? I mean, that's a really puncturing question. And here's the bottom line. As it relates to America and Canadians being our friend, they hit us. 1979 Iranian hostage crisis, Canadian diplomats held Americans, hid them, and then got them out of the country safely, and then stayed behind at huge personal risk to them. It's just striking to me that we would be this damaging and this hostile towards a nation that has been such an incredible friend of the United States. So I would argue that the Trump administration tariff policies are not only inconsistent and unpredictable, they're just baseline stupid.